Good day everyone, so hope you're all doing really well. I've had a ton of fun playing with Sandrone on my account, but I've seen that on social media that a lot of people are starting to think the situation over and they kind of realize that Sandrone is not as strong DPS wise as they were led to believe by leaks, by some Fury crafters prior to her release. So what has gone wrong? Well, that's what we'll try and deep dive in today's video. Now, you'd expect me to have a properly built Sandrone, and of course, like most of you, I went to the moon to go and farm some materials for our weapon and all of that, and then I got distracted like flying around with Chaska. So unfortunately, I don't have a Sandrone showcase for you today. That'll maybe be in future, that'll be future impact. But what I do want to talk about is actually the DPS and the DPS dummies. So a lot of people have speculated that the DPS dummies just don't work properly. So when you calculate the damage for Sandrone, it's not a true reflection of what she does, which is kind of odd because I think the DPS dummy and the stage UID is there. But the one that I use, and I think that a lot of popular content creators use, actually does calculate the numbers correctly. And as you can see here in the background, that's the very first thing that I did when I got Citlali and Sandrone in this patch. I just went to see, okay, let's try and isolate the damage. Let's see, do we count stellar reactions appropriately or properly? And the TLDR is yes, we do. So I think from that, in that sense in of itself, without just having Sandrone in the party, we can see Citlali, Yaimiko, and all that means is that the new stellar conduct reactions, look at that, they're being counted. We can see the strongest hits reflecting. So I think in a bit you'll see me getting 120k. It reflects as the strongest hit, the DPS update. So DPS dummies, I think they're pretty good. So why is Sandrone's team DPS like really bad? Well, there are a number of reasons, and I think the first and most obvious is that she doesn't have all of her supports yet. So yes, she may have gotten a bit of a Beidou and a Diona and some units to help her, but effectively it is from a meta perspective, Sandrone and Yaimiko. And we're missing two other dedicated units. So this is why even at C6 we can see that Sandrone she's not living up to the Mavuika Citlali type of hype, and that's just naturally to be expected. And this is something that's very fascinating to me because in the past with Genshin Impact, we used to judge characters for what they bring to the table. I think the concept in the past of Hoyo releasing a future support unit wasn't something that we always had. So if I think back to even the days that Kokomi released, a lot of people made comparisons between her and Barbara and all of that. And then we saw that they released the clam set for Kokomi, which definitely helped quite a bit in terms of the DPS department. And I mean, that was just an artifact set to support the character. These days with modern teams, you definitely have a lot of support. I mean, just look at how much support Mavuika has. And half of her top meta teams and support are not even Natlan characters. So you're just going to use Mavuika, Citlali, Duran, and Nicole, and it's pretty effective. So in terms of Sandrone, obviously they're going to release more characters in Shishnaya, and I think that Tsaritsa might be one of those characters. I don't know. I really don't know what's going to happen. But this is the thing. When you base a lot of your hopes and speculations on leaks, and those leaks somehow get certain calculation numbers and coefficients wrong, that's where a lot of people can be misled. And this is one of what I saw on social media, one of the central claims is that when people leaked how stellar reactions work, they got the formulas wrong. That is one hypothesis that I've seen, and hence a lot of people overestimated the damage that Sandrone would do, because it is something that was just kind of interesting for me to notice, where a lot of people said, but hey, I pulled for this character because my favorite Fury crafter and leaker said she's going to be good, which is always kind of like, you can't just always think that the beta numbers are going to be final, because Hoyo can quite literally the day before the patch, or well, the day before the preload in the patch, change the numbers. They can absolutely do it. And we've seen that, I think, in the past as well, with Kokomi, where she always had like traditional ICD on the hydro application of a jellyfish, which meant that you only got hydro application every 4 seconds instead of every 2. And then after the beta ended, they actually kind of changed that so that every single jellyfish tick, doesn't have any ICD, which means theoretically if the jellyfish could tick faster, you would apply more hydro, but that's beside the point. But that is just an example of how the game can change, and I'm certainly not worried about Sandrone. In fact, I think what's really cool about the character is that she's enabled someone like Yai Miko, a character that I've had for a very, very long time, that I got 4 copies of in 30 pulls. Yes, the video is up on YouTube proving that. And it's just insane, to have this old unit at C6 and now suddenly she's just doing a crazy amount of damage because I got a new unit to play with. Now, that's kind of the strategy that Hoya was going for here. It's not like they're going to directly buff the old unit. You need the new unit to work with it, so I'm kind of iffy on that. It would have been nice to say, hey, for those of you that have a C2 or higher, yeah, you get a free Sandrone. I mean, that would be kind of nice of the company, but it is what it is. Look, they wanted to make money, and we also saw that with Sandrone, I think Japanese, the sales in Japan has just been through the roof. I think it's been higher than Colombina and so on. Don't quote me on that yet, but I've just seen some of the tweets and so on. But maybe we can do a recap once all the numbers are finalized after the banner. But yeah, I think Sandrone is in a good spot. I think the character herself, animation wise, if you really want me to be honest, I think she's just a rehash of Nouvelette's charge attack and some of the other animations we've seen, so nothing groundbreaking in that regard. Also in terms of what she offers in terms of exploration, nothing great, although you can do the infinite water trick, like being able to explore infinitely over bodies of water if you're careful with the timing. And if you're me, you can fly infinitely with her because there is an in-game glitch that allows you, or actually there are 2 in-game glitches that allow for infinite skills, but you didn't hear that from me, otherwise Hoyo's gonna patch it. But that's what I've got to share for today. So hopefully you found this interesting, or at least a bit entertaining, and yeah, see you guys in the next video. Cheers.